Welcome to Globewise Entertainment, your ultimate throwback destination for all things movies, memories, and the madness of Hollywood's past. Today we're diving headfirst into the outrageous, the cringeworthy, and the downright baffling cinema disasters of a legendary decade. That's right, this is Top 10 Worst Movies of the 1980s. From alien flops to forgotten sequels, we're counting down the films that made audiences ask, "Who approved this?" If you love bizarre movie moments, retro nostalgia, and brutally honest film talk, you're in the right place. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and join the Globewise family for more wild rides through Hollywood's best and worst. And hey, which 80s movie made your list of cinematic disasters? Let us know in the comments. We're ready for your hot takes. Let's roll the tape. 1. Howard the Duck, 1986. The duck disaster no one quacked for. In 1986, audiences sat down for what was supposed to be a fun, quirky adventure from the mind of George Lucas. What they got instead was a cigar-smoking alien duck crashing into Cleveland, befriending a rock singer, and fighting off interdimensional demons, with some seriously awkward romance thrown in. Howard the Duck, based on the Marvel comic, was expected to be a hit. After all, Lucas was fresh off Star Wars and Indiana Jones. But the film's mix of adult humor, slapstick, bad animatronics, and bizarre tone left audiences scratching their heads, and critics absolutely roasted it. From the awkward duck-on-human love scenes to the creepy special effects and a villain played by Jeffrey Jones turning into a tentacle-covered monster, Howard the Duck became the punchline of Hollywood failures. It tanked at the box office and even earned 4 Razzie nominations, including Worst Picture. What makes Howard the Duck so legendary isn't just how bad it is, it's how ambitious it was. Universal poured millions into a movie no one understood. It wanted to be edgy and funny, but it ended up being one of the strangest misfires in film history. And despite everything, the film has earned a strange cult following. Some fans even embrace its weirdness today. Still, it remains a feathered flop that flew too close to the sun and crash-landed hard. To Xanadu, 1980, a roller disco fantasy gone wrong. In 1980, audiences were promised a magical journey that fused classic Hollywood glamour with futuristic flair. Xanadu starred Olivia Newton-John, fresh off the massive success of Grease, alongside Hollywood legend Gene Kelly in what was billed as a bold musical fantasy filled with roller skates, neon lights, and muses from Mount Olympus. But what audiences got was something else entirely. The plot centers around a struggling artist named Sunny who meets Kira, a literal Greek muse, played by Newton-John, who inspires him to open a roller disco nightclub. Yes, an immortal goddess descends from the heavens to help build a roller disco. Visually, Xanadu tried to blend 1940s elegance with 1980s pizzazz. Unfortunately, the script was paper-thin, the acting awkward, and the storyline utterly baffling. Even the dazzling musical numbers, featuring electric light orchestra, couldn't rescue it from critical scorn. Despite its star power, Xanadu became an infamous box office disappointment. It was so poorly received that it inspired the creation of the Golden Raspberry Awards, or Razzies, which honor the worst in cinema. That's right, Xanadu was bad enough to help launch an award show for bad movies. Yet, in an ironic twist of fate, Xanadu eventually gained cult status. Fans now celebrate its glittery weirdness and campy charm. And in 2007, it even inspired a self-aware Broadway musical that embraced its flaws and turned them into comedy gold. Still, no amount of roller disco redemption can erase the fact that in 1980, Xanadu skated straight into cinematic disaster. 3. Jaws, The Revenge, 1987. This time, it's personal. By the time Jaws, The Revenge hit theaters in 1987, the franchise had already jumped the shark, literally and metaphorically. But this 4th installment didn't just jump it. It strapped on a jetpack and soared over it in slow motion. The plot? Buckle up. The film begins with Ellen Brody, now a widow, convinced that the great white shark that killed her husband and son in previous films is back, and specifically targeting her family. That's right, a shark, with a grudge, swimming thousands of miles from New England to the Bahamas, out of pure vengeance. And the tagline? This time it's personal. Critics and fans alike couldn't believe their eyes. Not only did this shark have a personal vendetta, but it also roared, stood upright at times, and somehow exploded without any clear explanation. Was it the electricity? The memories? Bad writing? Even worse, the film featured Michael Caine, who didn't even attend the Oscars to collect his award for Best Supporting Actor, because he was busy filming this. When asked about Jaws: The Revenge, Caine famously said, "I have never seen it, but by all accounts it is terrible. However, I have seen the house that it built, and it is terrific." The effects were laughable, the logic was non-existent, and the emotional stakes felt forced. Audiences were left wondering how the majestic terror of Spielberg's original film had spiraled into a rubbery fish flopping its way through an underwater soap opera. 4. The Garbage Pail Kids movie, 1987, a childhood nightmare in live action. In 1987, a movie hit theaters that left parents horrified, critics stunned, and kids traumatized. The Garbage Pail Kids movie was supposed to be a quirky, gross-out comedy based on the wildly popular trading cards that spoofed the Cabbage Patch Kids. What audiences got instead was a chaotic mess that defied logic, taste, and basic filmmaking. The film follows a lonely boy named Dodger who teams up with a group of bizarre, puppet-like mutants known as the Garbage Pail Kids. Each kid has a disgusting trait, from snot-covered faces to uncontrollable flatulence, and together, they try to help Dodger fight off bullies and win the heart of a teenage girl. That might sound like innocent fun, but the execution was nothing short of grotesque. The character designs were nightmare fuel. The animatronic masks barely moved, creating an eerie, stiff-faced look that made the characters more terrifying than funny. Even worse, the film's attempts at humor were crude and mean-spirited, alienating both adults and children alike. Critics universally panned the movie. Roger Ebert called it repulsive, and the Garbage Pail Kids movie has since landed on countless worst-of-all-time lists. With a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and an infamous reputation, the film has become a cult object of ridicule, studied more for its failure than any nostalgic charm. It was meant to sell toys. Instead, it sold the idea that not every toy deserves a movie. 5. Mac and Me, 1988. The Day Mac Went Too Far. Inspired by the 1988 cult disaster, Mac and Me. It was 1988, and young Eric Cruz had just moved to California with his mom and brother. Life in a wheelchair wasn't easy, but it got a whole lot weirder the moment a squishy, bug-eyed alien tumbled into his backyard through a NASA escape pod shaped like a soda can. The alien, Mac, short for Mysterious Alien Creature, was addicted to Coca-Cola and danced uncontrollably whenever McDonald's music played. Naturally, Eric and Mac became best friends. But Eric had no idea how far Mac would go to fit in. One day, during a birthday party at a McDonald's, Mac climbed on stage wearing an employee visor. When the music started, he began breakdancing. Kids cheered. Fries flew. Ronald McDonald himself tried to keep up, but Mac's limbs wobbled like spaghetti on a trampoline. Then came the explosion. Mac, trying to impress Eric, borrowed a birthday cake candle and stuck it in the soda dispenser, thinking it would make a soda fountain of fireworks. Instead, it short-circuited the entire building. Shrieks, sparks, and soggy fries rained down. Eric face-bombed. Mac, that's not how Earth birthdays work. The fire department arrived. So did NASA. So did Ronald McDonald's legal team. In the end, the government tried to deport Mac back to space, but the alien just sucked a straw full of Coke, spun into the air, and disappeared into the clouds like a sugar-powered balloon. Eric waved goodbye, muttering, "Next time, I'm befriending a goldfish." 6. Bolero, 1984, a fever dream of passion and pain. In the glitzy shadow of 1980s Hollywood, where neon lights flickered and VHS tapes ruled, a dream was born. One soaked in silk sheets, slow-motion fanfare, and awkward sensuality. That dream was Bolero. The star? Bo Derek, the decade's blonde bombshell, determined to prove she was more than just a poster on teenage bedroom walls. With her husband John Derek directing, they created what they called an erotic journey of self-discovery. What audiences got instead was a cinematic train wreck that couldn't look away from itself. The plot was simple, too simple. A rich, free-spirited woman named Air sets out to lose her virginity in the most dramatic and international way possible. Spain? Morocco? Why not both? With every location more exotic than the last, the film promised forbidden romance but delivered bizarre montages, questionable acting, and an awkward obsession with slow pans. Critics were baffled. Viewers were stunned. Even fans of 80s skin flicks felt a little uncomfortable. Roger Ebert called it a hapless embarrassment, while others labeled it softcore boredom. But through all the jeers, Bolero did manage one thing. It burned itself into pop culture history, not for greatness, but for the sheer audacity of its misguided ambition. Today, Bolero remains a symbol of what happens when creative control goes unchecked, and when sensuality forgets to bring along a story. It's not just a bad film. It's an unforgettable chapter in the saga of 1980s Hollywood excess. 7. Superman 4. The Quest for Peace, 1987. Once the world looked to the skies and believed in miracles. Metropolis buzzed with hope the day Superman vowed to rid the Earth of nuclear weapons. The people cheered, the media praised him, and for a moment peace didn't seem like a fantasy, it felt possible. But good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. Somewhere between orbiting space capsules and recycled footage of him flying, Superman grew tired, not physically but creatively. His once thrilling adventures were now stitched together with awkward dialogue, bargain bin villains, and hollow speeches about global harmony. Then came Nuclear Man. Cloned from a strand of Superman's hair and powered by the sun, this golden-haired menace wore shoulder pads and growled like a cartoon villain. He wasn't born of conflict or tragedy, just a sloppy script and the desperate need for a new enemy. Their battle raged across cities, the moon, and back again, but somehow felt weightless, like the strings holding them up behind the green screen. Lex Luthor smirked in the background, not with menace, but like a man who knew even the story didn't take him seriously anymore. And when it was over, when the fake peace was restored and the world reset to the same state of chaos, Superman flew away, delivering a final monologue that rang hollow, like an echo in an empty theater. The world didn't cheer this time, and neither did the fans. Because even heroes can fall not just from the sky but from greatness. 8. Can't Stop the Music, 1980. The beat that couldn't be stopped. New York City, 1980. Glitter clung to the sidewalks like fallen stars, and the air was thick with ambition and hairspray. Amid the disco craze fading fast and punk clawing its way into the mainstream, he still believed in the music, the kind that sparkled in bell-bottoms and harmonized with sequins. Jimmy Vega, a struggling record store clerk with a flair for showmanship and zero talent for subtlety, had one dream: to form the world's most fabulous pop group. He didn't have money, connections, or even a decent demo tape. But he did have heart, platform shoes, and a vision filled with saxophones and synchronized dance moves. When he stumbled across a trio of singing gym instructors, flamboyant, fearless, and frequently off-key, he knew fate had delivered his stars. They called themselves the Flex Boys, and their choreography involved dumbbells, glitter sweatbands, and pelvic thrusts that could cause mild concussions if performed too close to the audience. Jimmy begged, borrowed, and bribed his way into a record deal with a washed-up producer who owed his bookie a favor. The music video they filmed was a kaleidoscope of chaos. Roller skates, neon leotards, an exploding jukebox, and a cameo from a confused alpaca. It was supposed to be the birth of a disco revival. Instead, it was a disaster. Audiences laughed. Not the kind of laugh you want. Critics called it a 2-hour fever dream in sequins. But something strange happened. Teenagers started imitating the dances. The Flex Boys became ironic icons. And Jimmy? He didn't care if they mocked him. "The world can laugh," he said, standing proudly in a gold jumpsuit on live TV. "But you can't stop the music." And they didn't. Not really. The movie flopped, but the cult lived on. 9. Heaven's Gate, 1980. In the history of cinematic disasters, few films crash-landed harder than Heaven's Gate. Directed by Michael Cimino, who had just won an Oscar for The Deer Hunter, Heaven's Gate was supposed to be his magnum opus, a sweeping Western epic set during the Johnson County War. But what was intended to be a grand artistic statement quickly spiraled into one of Hollywood's most infamous flops. The budget exploded from an estimated $11 million to over $44 million, thanks to Cimino's obsessive perfectionism. He demanded hundreds of takes, rebuilt entire sets, and even delayed filming to wait for the right clouds to roll in. Studio executives at United Artists watched in horror as production dragged on for over a year. When it finally hit theaters in 1980, critics destroyed it. The original cut was a staggering 5 hours and 25 minutes, but even a heavily edited version couldn't save it from ridicule. Audiences stayed away, and the film made just $3.5 million at the box office. But Heaven's Gate didn't just bomb. It obliterated a studio. United Artists, once a powerhouse, was sold off soon after. The film became a cautionary tale in Hollywood excess, proof that unchecked ambition can burn millions and take down an empire. Ironically, decades later, some critics would come to reevaluate Heaven's Gate as a misunderstood masterpiece. But in the 1980s, it was the punchline of the decade. 10. Invaders from Mars, 1986. Tagline: The invasion is already here. Unfortunately, so is this movie. In 1986, legendary horror director Tobe Hooper, yes, the same man who gave us the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, decided to remake the 1953 sci-fi classic Invaders from Mars. On paper, it sounded like a slam dunk. Nostalgia, aliens, and big-budget practical effects. But what audiences got instead was an awkward mess that felt more like a children's TV special accidentally spliced with a B-grade horror flick. The story follows a young boy who suspects his parents, and most of the town, are being taken over by mind-controlling Martians. Sounds thrilling, right? Well, it should have been. But between the clunky dialogue, campy acting, and unintentionally hilarious creature effects, think foam rubber monsters that wobble when they walk, the film quickly lost all credibility. Even the usually reliable Karen Black couldn't save the day. And yes, she starred alongside her real-life son in the movie, which only added to the weirdness. Critics blasted the film for being confusing in tone. Was it horror? Sci-fi? A kid's adventure? Even the aliens seemed unsure why they were invading Earth. Despite Hooper's reputation, Invaders from Mars was a box office bomb, and now lives on as a cautionary tale of how not to remake a beloved classic. Legacy. It's remembered less for its plot and more for its unintentionally funny moments, like the Martians' weird moaning noises, the abrupt ending, and the incredibly fake tunnels under the sand. For bad movie lovers, it's a cult gem. For everyone else, a cringe-worthy misfire from a decade full of them. And there you have it, the top 10 movie misfires of the 1980s. From rubbery aliens to cheesy dialogue, these films reminded us that not every trip to the theater was a blockbuster. But hey, that's what makes them unforgettable in their own bizarre way. Which of these cringe classics have you actually watched or survived? Drop your favorite or least favorite in the comments. We'd love to hear your picks. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and join us here at Globewise Entertainment, where we celebrate Hollywood's wildest hits and its most hilarious misses. Until next time, stay curious, stay cinematic, and maybe double-check the reviews before pressing play. Would you?